One example, because as you know, there are some objectives in the European directive, but each state has to specify a lot of objectives. So I take the summary of the French example. In France, we were very late till 2007. We did not, before that period, we did not have any actual action plan. We were late in comparison with Germany, with Scandinavian countries, with Austria, with some part of Europe policy in UK. And we awoke, yes, so low motivation for the EPBD, and our first text in 2006 was not ambitious at all, minus 15% in comparison with the previous regulation. And we awoke 3 years ago. After a presidential election, there was a big discussion in France with an original negotiation on national level with government, local authorities, employees, unions, and environmental associations. And we will discuss not only with energy efficient buildings, but with climate change, biodiversity, environmental risk, and health risk. We call this Grenelle because it is the name of the street of the ministry in May '68. Well, there was a huge negotiation after the big strike in France in May '68, and it was a big change after this Grenelle negotiation. And we took the word from May '68. The French government took the word from May '68 to show the importance of the transformation which was needed, especially because we were late. So first result, we got a coordinated action plan with a first law and a second law, a lot of policy instruments. And here are the policy instruments I was speaking of. And in red, you got all what we use in France in the 4 kinds. And this afternoon, you will have an example of that one. So you have, when you are discussing about policies, you have to get in depth in each instrument and its cost efficiency. And so the jump is really huge, because in 2012, the consumption will be for all new construction minus 50%. And well, we anticipated the European regulation because we said zero energy for 2020. But the European directive now is most ambitious for public buildings, because the most ambitious than French law, because for public building it will be 2018. The most important question is, of course, existing buildings, because 90% of 2020 stock exists now. New construction is marginal for the next years. New construction is important for 2050 and 2100. But for 2020 and 2030 objectives, existing stock is very important, much more important than construction, new construction. And the ambition is very high, minus 38% for the whole stock. That is 3.5 billion of square meters. Very difficult to meet. And I like to conclude, if you like to get in depth in some aspects of policies, as I told you, I am the coordinator of this task group, number 66 of the International Council for Building Research, and we are organizing internet session for each continent. And the first one was Europe, last February. And we got 5 presentations, and we got about 100 participants through internet. It was a very, very interesting meeting. And if you like to have some aspects with 5 topics, I advise you you will have the presentation with the links. And if you like to deal with comparing energy performance requirement, you have to be very cautious. And there is an interesting presentation by Netherlands speaker. From France, we study regulation as a strong mean to promote innovation. That's very interesting for the property and construction actor. Belgium is very interesting for the way of controlling the policies, and they got very interesting means to control the policies. Germany is the most advanced country in Europe about the existing stock. They are very dynamic, and they got very active regulation, incentives, and support instruments for existing building regulation. One of the most interesting examples in Europe for this huge topic. And Poland was interesting because Eastern European countries got some specificity. Thank you. And there on this Sustainable Real Estate blog, you got a lot of other information in French and in English. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jean. Okay, thanks for an informative, very informative and interesting presentation. So we'll have just time for a couple of questions. Any questions, comments?
You mentioned percentage reductions in energy consumption. I was just wondering what the baseline was to measure that reduction against.
What do you mean?
You had the 50% reduction in energy consumption.
50. Yeah.
I was wondering what the...
In France, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
What the baseline for measuring that 50% reduction?
It is comparison between 2012 thermal regulation, compulsory thermal, with 2005, which is a current one, you know. And before, there was a difference between 2005 thermal regulation and the previous one, which was 2000 thermal regulation, but the difference was only 15%. That was minus 15%. And so the French government decided, and French government in cooperation with the 5 other bodies, you know, unions, employees, local authorities, and environmental association, decided a difference of 50% between the two regulations.
But perhaps maybe you mean how actually this is measured, the energy consumption is measured, what measure is being used for?
Yes, you mean which use?
Yeah, that's probably what you meant, the measure, or do you want the baseline?
It was more the baseline.
The baseline as opposed to the measure itself, because obviously this is a figure just comparing one year to another, but it doesn't tell you what's sort of the actual measure, so it might be useful to know what's the actual measure that's used.
That is for heating, hot water, light, and air climatization. That is everything except specific electricity linked to computers or to or appliance and so on. But with this, yes, it will be. Yes, there are different definitions for this. For the moment, the European directive will define, because we got 2 or 3 different definitions of positive energy buildings or zero energy buildings, and there are discussions in Europe to define them.
But basically, the definition of the 2012 thermal regulation in France is slightly above the passive house level, very much. It's not as demanding as passive house, but it's pretty